what's up, everybody? This is your boy Dante, and another episode of Why Date, the podcast. We're here, and I got myself, Kiki, Swish, Red Pill, Alpha Monk, and Shirley. Got the whole squad here today, and happy Easter! It is Sunday. We are here on a Sunday, and we're doing everything social distancing. We're practicing our social distancing. So, we can recap about like last week was kind of heavy. We were hitting everybody with a whole bunch of stuff on the whole. We were pretty busy on our episodes and content. So I appreciate you guys sharing that, putting it out there, putting our content out there, man. I definitely appreciate it. You guys definitely were on point this whole last week. Just want to thank you guys. Of course, you know, you guys are killing it, man. So but yeah. So the whole week was mostly about vulnerability. Okay. So now we had a love coach on there, and we also talked about it with us, all of us together. And so what is your guys' takeaway from it? I know that some people weren't on or were absent on it, but they were also tuning in on the live stream. We can start with either or. But let's definitely talk about that love coach. It got kind of deep, man. It got pretty deep to me. I think it was
yeah, it got pretty deep.
Yeah, it got pretty deep, man. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, so I guess I was kind of like I'm not gonna say guinea pig, but I was the one who was like, all right, I'll deal with some love coaching, right? Some being broken down, being chiseled down just a little bit, trying to distill what my love blocks are.
Yeah.
And I was game the entire time, like my gameness. I was like, all right, I'll totally keep going. I'll be vulnerable and open. But after the podcast ended, man, I was emotionally exhausted. Like I was tired, dude. I laid in my bed and I was just like, oh, I don't want to feel anything at all. Like I was just in this gray zone because I had to be open and I thought about it, right? Because basically what happened was apparently people who didn't see last week's episode yet, I do have some love blocks around openness and vulnerability, more so allowing myself to be vulnerable. And yeah, after sitting on it for a couple of days, I was kind of like, there might be some vulnerability issues there. There might actually be, there might be some blocks there that I probably need to visit and think about. But yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, for getting a little vulnerable there, buddy.
Were these vulnerabilities in as far as involving dating, or was they like vulnerabilities as far as your personality?
Well, I think all the guys on here could understand that, like. And I know the girls, as soon as I say this, are going to be all like, oh, no way. But the truth is, vulnerability is not nearly as appreciated in men as it is in women. Mm-hmm. And when you look at historically what men have had to do and what roles they've taken on for themselves, vulnerability wasn't something you needed to have. It wasn't something that necessarily helped you get the job done, quote unquote. And but now that we don't have to do those certain things, it's like vulnerability and the lack thereof has become a big issue. So for me personally, my problem is I don't like to be vulnerable. I don't like to open up about past traumas, childhood issues, things that are causing me great emotional distress, right? Mm-hmm. More so in like a dating sense. I think I have like two friends who I will offhand say something to kind of allude to emotional distress. But other than that, I just keep it to myself. I handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, me and my friends, I have, me and my friends are a lot older. Well, they're a little bit older than I am. And we're not very, we're not very vulnerable at all, We don't even show emotion, Most of the time, if you do show a little bit of emotion, it's like, hey, you're being a bitch, So, yeah, when we call each other out, it's like, hey, man, you stop being a bitch, And it's terrible how guys don't show that emotion,
I think generally speaking, guys are kind of like, they don't show that much emotion, but I think they will show more vulnerability and emotional distress around men than they would women, just because women will, it's been known women will judge them more if they show vulnerability or too much vulnerability. And you don't really know the scale of what's too much and what's too little. But they've done studies, you can see them on YouTube and stuff like that. When women see a man show too much vulnerability, he's seen as
less of a man.
Yeah, less of a man. He's seen as weaker. So it's harder for us to open up, even in a relationship. You know, if you show way too much, then you know you'll start to lose a lot of ground. You know, she won't see you as that what can I say, a stronger figure. You know, that rock that she needs when she's in an emotional distress. So it's like it's kind of difficult. It's a little bit hard, you know, especially when dealing with women. So, I mean, I found the best thing is that, you know, if you have one of your homies, you know, that road dog you always have with when you're a guy, that's the one that you've known all your life. Markel could probably, you know, I don't know if Dante knows or Swiss knows, but you always have that one dude that's you all your life. He's like your brother, you know. But that's the one guy that you can be vulnerable with. You can release all that with, and he won't see you as weak because he understands. And that's usually how guys can, you know, get that out of themselves, you know, because it's kind of hard with women. It just is.
I have
So
a-
are you
I have
saying
a-
that in
sorry.
your experience that you've never had a time where you could feel open with your significant other or feel vulnerable with her?
Open, I see open and vulnerability, two different things. I can be open, always. I can be open, especially with somebody I care about or I love. I'll always be open. But there's certain lines that I won't cross or certain things I won't talk about that will keep me vulnerable. Because it's, again, we've all seen if you break up with that girl or you hurt her in a way or something like that, she will use that against you, those vulnerabilities against you. So it's kind of hard. Again, you know, once you experience that a couple of times with the female, you start to learn. So it's just hard to know when to be that open and that vulnerable to her because you don't know if she can use it against you in the future or if she'll see it as a weakness at some point. Or, you know, I had a friend, James, he cried in front of a girlfriend of 2 years, and she was telling me once, she got drunk, she told me once, she was like, the way he was crying, she kind of got disgusted by it. And that was just the weirdest thing I ever heard. And I was like, damn. She was like, yeah, it was just the way he was crying was so, you know, I guess it was just like weak. And she said she got disgusted by it. And I was just like, damn, you know. And he had to rebuild that masculinity in front of her. And it just, you know, it's kind of fucked up, but it is what it is. You know, it's just one of those things you just got to learn.
I have a question for the girls. All right, girls. If a guy cries in front of you and he owns it, or you know, if he shows emotion and he owns it, is it completely different to being vulnerable? Because there's two things. There's two sides. I can own it, show my emotions, and just own it and not give a fuck. That's mostly me. I own my feelings. I don't really care what the other person is thinking. So like I can give two fucks. You know, if I'm crying, if I'm watching one of my favorite movies is Saving Private Ryan. You know, and fuck that movie's fucking sad. And but you know, if I cry, I cry. You know, I just don't give a fuck. You know, what do you guys think? Is it different? Because I'm owning the moment. I don't really care if what she's thinking. I don't really care. You know, it's my emotion. You know, I'm owning it.
For me, to see like my male partner cry, I mean, I do understand where Alpha Month and Red Pill are coming from because there is that kind of like men don't show that like that emotion. So to see my male partner cry, like that'd be kind of scary for me because it's like, okay, this has to be a big deal. But as for like thinking he's less than or thinking that like he's not man enough or any of that, no, not necessarily. I think that only makes me want to help more or be more present for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree too. I mean, a lot of my relationships in the past, my partner, he wasn't someone who would cry. Like I've never seen them cry before, but for them to cry, it must be, you know, a really big deal and for them to show that type of emotion. So I would appreciate it, you know, and I don't think they should feel afraid to cry in front of me.
Now we getting emotion mixed up with vulnerability. I guess it's all the same thing, but I think what Belinda was talking about, you mentioned that it's like I said, it's what all the girls said last week too. Just showing that piece of you, not to everybody. It doesn't have to be to everybody,
That's terrible.
And you keep it very limited to certain people, but if it's your partner, you can open up. You know what I mean? Not just tell them like a whole bunch of stuff like I know how Alpha Monk mentioned that the girls women can use that against you, like, oh, you're just like your father, this because you know you had trauma with your dad, and they bring it back to surface again as a tool or something to bring back to you as an attack. You know, I can see that happening too. But I mean, I don't know. From what I see, when I think of vulnerability, I think it is a part of identification. Because if you're such a mystery, it's cool and all for the beginning, but I think later on women want to know like at least that side, not like a weak side, just something like a story,
Right.
like some kind of story, something that goes around that. I understood that now, but like, okay, so vulnerability doesn't mean that. That's usually being vulnerable about your story. You can talk about something that happened in your family or something your parents had. So, you know what I mean? That's like more of a vulnerable side of you. You don't have to be like, sorry, right? You know what I mean? Like, so,
And just
Well,
like,
crying every day and shit.
I've always taken vulnerability as the things that actually create the issues that we go through as adults, and that usually stems from our childhood and our teenage years through high school. So those are usually the vulnerabilities because those are the things that sculpted you and kind of, you know, gave you cracks in your own personality and your own insecurities as well. So that's what I see as vulnerabilities. And some of those things are so hurtful and so tragic because you were so young that it happened that it's very hard to open up to people, you know. So you have to kind of like compartmentalize those emotions and those vulnerabilities and only let certain people into those, you know, those doorways, if you want to call it that. But just like being an open book is kind of dangerous because people can use that against you. Even the nicest person can turn on you, you know. So it's just, you just got to be cautious, hyper vigilant, I would say.
And to add on to what Alpha Monk is saying, it's like, I've used this term a lot, and it's a term that I really firmly believe in, right? Emotional responsibility. Like, you are responsible for your emotions and your feelings, right? You're responsible for involving yourself in things that make you feel a certain way, and you're responsible for responding once you feel a certain way. And I think, I know you guys hate to hear it, but I think being overly vulnerable, overly sensitive, and overly open, even with your partner, is emotionally irresponsible.
it's so interesting because I think I remember you saying, like, would you ever take a drug that with your partner that would like remove all of these like perceived egos and personality traits and like get really vulnerable? Like, would you be willing to do that? And I think it's interesting that you're saying like being that level of vulnerability is like not a, like it's not good to reveal yourself like that with a partner.
So I think,
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just say I've experienced acid a few times, and I've done them all by myself. Only the one time I've been with somebody that I truly trusted, it was a cousin of mine, and I've known him all my life, so I trust him. So to do something like that, it takes away the ego and takes away all of your, I guess, it takes away so many things that you worry about, that you don't even know that you worry about. So to bring somebody in, I'd really, really have to trust her because you don't want a bad trip because that stuff lasts for like 8 hours. So you definitely want somebody you can truly trust, somebody you love, somebody you have fun with, somebody you know that you can fall asleep with, or if you do freak out, her voice or his voice will be a calming, you know, mode for you, or it won't, you know, fuck you up even more. So it's the same thing, you know. It's just it's her level of trust, his level of trust, respect, everything. If I'm going to show you my vulnerability, because that's the thing that I am somewhat guarded, because that's the one thing that I try to protect is my heart, because that's the hardest thing to repair is when somebody breaks that. It's just really hard to repair, and it can create insecurities. It can create all kinds of shit for the future. And who likes when somebody brings their own old baggage from their last relationship? You know, that's disrespectful to me. It's like, I'm not that person. I have nothing to do with that person. So, you know, why are you bringing his or her luggage to my, you know, my place? So it's kind of the same thing.
So moral of the story, don't do drugs.
Basically, yeah.
Or do the drugs.
All right. Don't do drugs, guys. All right.
Do the drugs.
All right.
I do the safe ones. Do the safe ones.
All right. So I'm gonna move on to the next topic tonight, and it's gonna be interracial dating. I know I've talked about that cultural dating, interracial dating, all that stuff, right? I know. You guys put a couple of questions here, so it makes it pretty interesting. So we're gonna try to shorten, condense all this into one. But just so you guys know, the buzzwords today. Okay, so our buzzword today, if you guys just now tuning in for the first time, buzzwords are words that we choose and are making. If one of us say it, we have a hot seat for about what, 3 questions. Those
Yikes.
3 questions. And it's either one of us can ask a question or people on the live stream who's tuning in can ask a question too as well. So buzzwords are, I'm going to say this once, disclaimer, logical and emotional. Okay, emotionally, because I know you guys are using that word. Emotional, emotionally, same thing.
That's hard.
The same thing. So you guys been saying that all this whole couple times earlier. So we're done with vulnerability. So hopefully those words don't pop up.
Yeah.
So those are hard words, man. Someone's gonna say it for sure. And I feel like someone said it a buzzword last time, and I didn't catch him. Like, I listened to him. I was editing. I was like, he said.
Really?
He said. I think it was either. I think it was Red Pill. I think you said it, Markel. I think you said one of the words, and I was like, I didn't catch that one, man. I'm gonna be watching now. I'm gonna be listening. I'm gonna listen to the rest of you guys. So I guess to talk about interracial, I know we live in America, we live in the US, we deal with people in different relationships. First question I'm gonna start off with, the first little topic I'm gonna talk subtopic is, have you experienced discrimination when meeting the family or friends of the person you're dating? And how did you handle it? We're gonna start with, keep it brief. We're gonna start with women first. So, I know some of you guys have a lot to say. I know the guys have a lot to say about this, but
I have a lot.
So sorry. Mention.
I can go
You want to go, Kevin? Okay, good.
I mean, I have. I would say indirectly. I remember one of my exes. He was a Vietnamese. We were together for maybe like over 2 years, and throughout that whole time, he never really invited me to any, family like gatherings or get-togethers or whatever. And I always felt like it was because I wasn't Vietnamese too. I'm Filipino, so. It was kind of like indirect. They didn't really like say it to my face or anything, but I kind of got the idea that was the thing because his brother's like girlfriend would always be invited to these events, and she was Vietnamese.
Okay.
So I felt like they accepted her more than me. So that's kind of like my thing. That's kind of like what I went through when it comes to that. So.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, man. And it's crazy hearing it from a woman's perspective too. I know the women go through it too, just as much as the guys. It's not like, I feel like it's still kind of somewhat low-key racist, even if you still say a joke here and there and you laugh about it and you're just like, okay. You don't want to be disrespectful. So especially in Asian culture, respect is so key. And if you go in there and start disrespecting people, you're just like, damn, they really just said that to me, really? Even I think it's same with Hispanic culture. In any kind of culture, just respect is a big thing. When you say things that are racist, you're just like, you can't fault them for it, but some people kind of, grew up differently. But I see, I can see what that means on that one. What about you, Aunt Shirley? What have you been? I know you're, say a little bit about your background too.
Okay, so I'm Ghanaian and I'm first generation, which basically means my parents immigrated from Ghana to here and then like set up camp, and I'm their first child. And my very first love was Chinese American, and his parents were very traditionally Chinese. We dated for 2 years, and about like maybe like in a year and a half into our relationship, I started coming over more to his family's house, and his mother did not like me at all. And I later find out the reason why she doesn't like me isn't because I'm not respectful or isn't because I didn't show difference to them. It was because she didn't like that he was dating someone who was Black and not like, and that I was like curvy and stuff. And I remember feeling really like bad about myself for it. And one time when their family like went to like Hawaii for their daughter's wedding, I remember like babies or dogs sitting their dogs and like coming over and like taking care of like the mom's plants and just being consistent and showing that like I was there for the family ended up changing the mother's perspective on me. And she still didn't like, she was easing into getting to know me a lot better because I was making the effort to be there for the family. But yeah, like Chinese parents are like really strict. Ghanaian parents are really strict too. So like the fact that we had this relationship was kind of like taboo, so to speak. It was like the best relationship I've ever been in. But yeah, I've experienced discrimination for sure.
Okay, so you're saying in the beginning, she didn't really like you, but then you kind of changed her mind, like by the end, by being present for her family.
Yeah,
for the family.
Yeah, for sure. I remember specifically like his older sister defending me and being like, she's always here and she's taking care of the dog and she's taking care of your plants. Like, why don't you like her? Like she's she like, I think it really helps having people within the culture to kind of like have your back. So,
Also, when you break the cultural prejudice they have of whatever race you are,
right,
that's when you start to shine. Yeah,
exactly.
I've noticed that through my own dating.
Yeah, absolutely, because they have these like ideas of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And
not
like
only that you're black, you're African origin, so
right,
born, you know what I mean?
like whatever, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like it's even worse because like it's there's a big difference. I know the brothers on here can tell me, you know, African is a little bit different from African Americans. So we, you know, the
Yeah.
totally two different things. So they probably saw you as that, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what kind of, you know.
Yeah, they did. And again, they're like, this is their only son too. So there's like a lot of cultural stuff happening at once. And it was only through like, again, like showing up in the family and then also having people like defend me that kind of helped shape the older generation's like view. And I was more accepted in the family after.
I have a question for Anne Shirley.
Hey.
Right. Did you ever feel like at any point that you had to not only one get them to change their perspective on you, but you were also kind of representing their entire view on like Black people or like Africans? So it was like you held yourself to an even higher standard because you're the closest representation they have for their mental model of what they think about Black.
Absolutely. I really felt like I had to just be super respectful and just do like I had to combat all those stereotypes because again, I'm their very first like contact with like Blackness. Like up until that point, they live in Cupertino. Up until that point, he had only dated like Asian girls and maybe one white girl.
Yeah,
and like, yeah, I felt a humongous pressure to like really show up for like my ethnicity.
Yeah, he sounds like a pimp.
Yeah, well, right. Was he first gen or was he born in the States?
He was born in China and then was raised in the States like around 2.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. And I know my Asians, like they're different, man. Like first gen Asian is a little different from second gen Asian.
There's a lot of like again like
and Vietnamese too. Come on, man. They're a little kind of, you know, interesting. A little bit more a little more different too. Chinese, Vietnamese, like they don't play, man.
They don't play.
Yeah, they don't play, man. So like, you know, yeah, nah. I can go on a whole spiel about that. All right, so we'll start with the fellas now. Okay, we'll start with Red Pill first, and Alpha Mom and then Swish. Same question.
So I'll keep it brief because there's one story that I actually want to tell, which is very interesting, right? So yes, I have experienced discrimination for being Black. And I've experienced it both ways. I've experienced it for not being fully Black, and I've experienced it for being, you know, Black enough. Right. So the first one was, I remember like there was this girl I had a big crush on her. It was like 7th grade, and I was hitting like a really big growth spurt. So like all my clothes, I just bought them big. Right, I all bought big. So it was like baggy white tees and cargo pants, and you had on your Air Force Ones. That's just 1,000%. And I remember like going over to my crush's house because we lived around the corner from each other, and her parents like, you remember that scene in Bad Boys with Martin Lawrence is like 17, like that. It basically happened to me. So the dad came out and was like, "Oh, hold up," and then he said something, and the mom came out, and then she yelled back in Spanish. And grandma came out, and they're all just like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And then of course they hear me speak, right, and I'm speaking with exceptionally proper diction at this point because I'm very terrified. I'm like, "Hey, I'm Raquel," voice cracked and everything, right, and they're all like, "Oh." And then after that moment, they discounted the fact that I was black. They were like, "Oh, he's black. He's not that black." What was interesting was my last girlfriend. She was Swedish, right? She was a Swedish citizen. I met her here just on work visa. So I remember when I first went over to Sweden, it was like I felt a little bit of pressure because, like, one, there's no mixed people in Sweden, right? Like in her town, it was like 80% Swedes, like 10% Arabs, and like 10% Somalis. That was it. And so it was like, I came over and it was like, I'm American. So there's that whole stereotype. None of our families actually visit America more than like once or twice. And then it was like I was black, but then I was like only like partially black. And it was just this really weird. And then come to find out, all the pressure was on her. And they were like, "You have an American boyfriend, like don't mess this up." And so it was a really weird dynamic to be in, where it was like I had to basically represent my entire country, right? Because they don't, aside from the media, they don't know. And then also represent black people. And then at that same time, I had to kind of make her look really, really good because they were putting pressure on her to be like, "Oh, this is the guy married and like have kids, and like don't mess this up."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So explain to you, like, what's your ethnicity? Like you said, you're half white body.
Right. Well, more than half. Get it right. So, I haven't done 23andMe, but if I look at my parents, my dad's 100% black, and my mom is half black, like 25% white, 25% blue. So I'm somewhere like the 70% black ratio with like 30% French and Filipino.
So you get in the club, then you're fine.
I know about Drake's son though.
so you can get in. You're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, all right. Ripple.
I'll keep it brief.
Alpha month.
I sent you guys a list.
I know you did.
Hilarious. But
humble brag for sure. Humble brag.
I've always been able to, pull any type of race. It's just been, that's my own little quirk. But as far as the black women and the black females and the white females and the mixed chicks, I never had problems with. But most of the Hispanic and Latin and all of the Middle Eastern and the Indians, pretty much every other ones, I've always had a problem with either one or the other parents or the grandparents. But it was always the grandparents. The Middle Easterns were the toughest just because they're very secluded with their traditions and their culture. And you have to be certain, you have to reach certain criteria to even think about dating their daughters. So that was always an issue. And they would always try my intelligence, see what I know, what I'm going for. And, I noticed that dating women in America is different dating women from different countries. Since I'm an artist and a writer, American parents kind of see that as an iffy, like, oh shit, he can't make it, or he could just be, always writing until he's like 80 and never sell anything, right? But over in other countries, they see artists as something special because not a lot of people can create something out of nothing. So when I told them that and I showed them pieces and stuff like that, they, then they kind of took me in. But I always kind of could get my foot in the door just because I am biracial or multiracial or whatever. Just by seeing that, they would kind of let me in. I remember once we went to a halal market. It was me and the chick I was with was Pakistani. We were together for 4 years. And I went in there and he was talking to me. He was like, "What are you?" He's like, "Middle Eastern, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh, I'm multiracial, this and that." And he was like, "Oh, well, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you're that." I was like, what the hell does that mean?
How dare he?
He gave me a hug and he gave me like a 10% discount. And I was like, I didn't get any of that. But
it was different, that other 10% that you're making.
It's a trip, man. So
He's gonna put up a GoFundMe for you. He's gonna have a GoFundMe. Start having people
they
donate
always
to you.
find
fault,
something
man.
to
Like,
latch onto. They
I'm
always
gonna say
find
that
something.
now.
God damn, I use 10%, man.
It's not your fault, man.
Yeah, right. But it's always some form of discrimination or prejudice, just because they don't know. And if they don't know anything about who you are, what you're about, or what your ethnicity is, then they're gonna fear somewhat. You know, what they only know what they see on television or what they read or what they heard from somebody else,
Sure.
and they can only go off of that, or what they see. So it's like you have to break that mold of what they know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way you can get further ahead. But the ones that accept me, they always immediately go to like, oh, I can't wait to what the children look like. And it's like, what the fuck?
Ew, I hate that. Like,
Yeah, I think that too. It's just like, man,
That is, right?
about that,
You know, exotic zoo. Come on, man.
like if you're choosing people just because you want your kid to have like good hair or light
You
skin
know what?
or whatever, that's weird. Like, why are you?
It's not weird. It's so common, man. I hear that a lot, man. A
I
lot
think
of
it's problematic.
Right.
yeah, I be hearing that. I hear that a lot, man. Because like I said, oh yeah, they make cute babies. The black and this makes cute babies. I'm like, how do you know? How do you know?
Yeah, you never know.
You're not in gene. You know, you don't work. You're not mastered in genes. You don't know. Like, it can come out ugly. Won't be my genes though. No, I'm just kidding. But all right, man. Swish, and then I'm gonna go with me. But I
What
know.
was the topic? I forgot the topic already. Sorry.
Have you ever dealt with discrimination? You being.
Oh yeah. So when I was coming out of high school, I dated this Fijian chick. She was twin sister, and so basically I went out with her for 5 years,
Okay.
and the whole entire 5 years, like we kept it a secret. No one knew.
Oh,
No one knew that we were dating. It fucking sucks. So if I had to go to the movies, I had to plan 2 weeks or a week in advance. It was terrible. It's pretty bad. Yeah. And then I remember we were still in high school, and I remember we went to prom, and the parents didn't know that we were dating at the time, so it was fucking hilarious. Yeah. And then like I think one day she got hella pissed off at me over the phone, typical me. And she got pissed off and she started yelling on the phone at me, and then that's how they found out I was dating her.
They found out you're Hispanic, or did they care?
The dad, well, they met me for prom, so they knew I was Hispanic.
Okay. So you didn't have a problem with it. So you didn't go through like that much discrimination. They didn't hate on you.
No, because like at the end of the day, they didn't, I didn't get to really talk to them. The only time that I talked to the dad was when I went to the prom with her. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Because like I feel like I go through this. It's hard to say this, man, but like there is a stigma that goes around. Of course, me being black, like there's certain ways I have to act. And it's already kind of thrown out there. Like, let's say I date some people who were first gen and their families from another country, and then they get into like they get Americanized, and they see all the stuff on TV, and they see how black people act, and they see how disrespectful, they see all that shit on there. So they portray that kind of image. When you step in, they already kind of hate it on you. I remember one time I was dating this Korean girl, man. It was kind of crazy, man. It could be me. I don't know what it is. But I was dating this girl. She was from Korea. She was, first gen, I believe first gen or second gen. And I went to go to the house, and this is when I was kind of getting inducted into Asian culture. So I kind of learned from my mistakes. A couple of my friends walking in the house with shoes, shit like that. And I fucked up, man. I thought I was cool, man. I was like, all right, cool. I got it. Like I figured it out. Like I take off my shoes when I walk in, right? What I messed up on, what made it bad, they already judged me already. They were looking me up and down like, oh, okay, all right, and I sat there, and then the dad was cooking, and they made some rice, man, and I threw some soy sauce on there, like right off the back. I'm like, I already know I need soy sauce in here. I didn't need to taste it. And the dad looks at me, he throws his handkerchief, his napkin down, his handkerchief down, and just walks out. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And then like the girl was she just shook her head like, oh, he fucked up, right? I was like, oh damn. what I do? It was like, I took off my shoes and I walked in. They were like, see, man, you got to taste the food first before you put any kind of sauces. I mean, you didn't tell me that. There was no handbook, man.
She set you up, man. She set you up.
Yeah, man. I'm like, there's no handbook. I didn't get no handbook. You didn't tell me how to act. Like this, man. It's just like, well, I guess this is it. I was like, what do you mean? And then they moved to like next week, man. I swear to God they moved. 2 weeks later they moved.
Wow.
She lived like not too far from me, man. She was like, down the street. And I was like, okay, cool. It's walking distance, man. Because for a while, we just found a different area we moved to. I'm like, oh, right?
Less black people there.
They didn't expect to see black people because I grew up in the suburbs, so they probably didn't expect to see a lot of black people there. And of all people, her daughter go pull up on a black dude walking in. And I actually looked like I didn't come in there like all like hella crazy looking. I ain't had no throwback trade. I didn't come. This is 2000. This is back when like this was possible. This is what we were wearing back then. We were wearing like bows and throwback jerseys and chains. I mean, I didn't come in there like that. I came like I was dressed like I was going to the club. I had a polo shirt on.
Had a collared shirt.
On. That hair. That's the best. I'm dressing like I was.
Sounded like you were going to an interview, man.
And I still fucked it up, man. And I feel like that was the only thing I really got to discriminate on because I feel like, man, you really get a chance, man. Everything was cool because they started asking you questions too. I'm not sure if you guys are feeling this for the guys too. They ask you what you're gonna do as a career, and I'm in high school at this time. So
Yeah.
I'm like, so are you going to become like an engineer, lawyer, doctor? Is that what you're going to pursue? Because that's what our daughter's doing kind of thing. I'm like, well, I haven't figured it out yet. It's like sophomore year. They already looked at me like this eye roll, like.
I remember one time when I went out with this Vietnamese girl, and the mom asked me, at the time I was just joking around with my mom, and she asked me, so what are you gonna do? I'm like, oh, well, I'm Mexican, so I'm just gonna be a janitor.
Oh
my goodness. You don't joke around about that.
It was bad. It was bad.
No.
Come on, bro.
Right.
That's so
You just said no, said nothing. I haven't figured it out yet. Construction worker.
Probably had a heart
This
attack.
seems like it's a high-paying industry right now. Come on, man. Janitors actually, I'm not hating on the janitors, man. Janitors actually make pretty good money, though.
Yo, the janitor at BART makes like what, 200,000?
Yeah, they make pretty good, depending on where you're at. But in Asian culture, man, you can't say that shit. You can't walk in there and say that. The color of a Hispanic, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, all right. Damn, you lied to it, man. I didn't say nothing. But, it could have just said, I'm going to become a doctor. I'm thinking that's going to be a good industry.
So I was wondering, can we skip question 2 and go to question 3?
Yeah, I was looking at question 2. Yeah.
This is like the perfect time, I guess, to enter question 3. I feel like it'd be a smoother transition.
Yeah, it's kind of, question number 2 is kind of the same question number 1. I mean, almost, we'll be like what we discussed.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that. So
we all kind of like already answered question 2, basically. We all dated interracially, so.
Yeah, we all open. We're open as fuck. Yeah, we can do that. All right. So the question is: are stereotypes true when you date outside your race? Do you prefer a race over your own? So I guess I'll start it out with myself. I'm open to it, but like I said, we already talked about our preferences last couple episodes back. Where like I put like white women on the bottom. Like there's still preference. This is like that would be if there was a group of girls and they were all different races, I'm gonna have to be like, oh, if the white girl was like kind of right there on the side, I'm like, I'm gonna go for the other one. You go for Asian, black, or
right.
And so, not hating on my white girls. I love them out there, man. They doing big things, but.
Come on, Dante. You say you hate them. Own it.
I mean, it depends. I mean, if she's a white girl like with blonde hair, blue eyes, or ginger, then I'm all in it. But like,
you know what it is? It's the blonde girls that come from like the suburbs, or they come from like middle of the country.
I dated them,
man.
man.
Like basic. They're very basic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? But if it's a white girl from San Jose, it's like, oh shit, all right, you're different.
Yeah.
I noticed the dark brothers always go for the very basic Barbie doll white chick, always.
I'm telling you, man, it's crazy because like that's what I was doing when I first moved out to the Ceremony or the suburbs. and I grew up with a lot of white people, so like I was like, oh, I'm gonna go for like a white girl. Like I've never had that before, and I'm sitting there just like early, like, oh man, well, I was black. There was like 3% black people, so like I'll ignore the black girls. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like you know, right? I was going for the white girls, and I was just prone on it, man. Like I lived it, man. Like that was like life, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'm done. Like, you know what I mean? Because you guys saw the movie Get Out, right? You guys all seen it.
No, I haven't seen it.
So long story short, man, I felt like I was in a scene from that. Because, like, there was, because her family had a cabin. They had, like, 3 summer homes. So one in, like, Santa Cruz, one in, like, Lake Tahoe. They had money. They lived in Danville, so they had money.
Oh.
So I went to their cabin for the weekend. I was like, did your parents know I'm black? That was the first question I said. Your parents know? Oh, yeah, they love black people. Like, you know, they like it. They like black people. You know, you're fine. No, why isn't it? And she we got in an argument about, why is it an issue? I was like, come on. You know, some people aren't too open. Your parents is a little different generation. You know,
already sounds like Get Out.
Right? You know,
I have a question.
That was the scariest movie to me. Get Out.
I have a question. This is for Dante and Alpha Monk. Have y'all ever dated a white girl whose dad secretly wanted to be black?
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Hands down. The ratchet. Yeah. And then their daughter, they're still shaming their daughter. Yeah. I've seen that shit.
Wait, what? That's a thing?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say. So I had an ex-girlfriend, right? She was ethnic, right? So her dad was white and her mom was ethnic, and her parents were divorced. And what I didn't realize was that the dad had remarried to a white woman, so she was the only ethnic person literally in her immediate family.
Damn.
So when I went over there, he was like, "Yo, what's up?" And tried to give me like a fist bump. And like he was like, "Yo," he's like showing me all these memes that like only really had to do with like black subculture. And he was like, "What kind of hip hop music do you listen to?" I listen to a lot of bluegrass, and jazz, and country, but I want to get into hip hop. Like,
Aww.
I mean, he was honestly like the coolest guy. Like, it's a shame I don't talk to him anymore. Actually, I really do miss him. He's the coolest dude. But like, there's nothing funnier than like, you know, dating a girl who's like one of her parents like wants to be black, and they're just like,
so cool.
What if he just wanted to get to know you and, you know, get closer to you? Like, do you feel like it had to do with because he wanted to be black, you know?
yeah, because I'm a guy. He's talking about guy things, but he didn't.
Well, if he's acting not like
I'm
himself,
sorry, if you want to be close to me, you'd be like,
it's kind of weird, you know.
Yeah,
'Cause I don't think Markel went in there and was like, "Hi, how are you? My name is Markel." You know, he didn't try to act white, so it's just weird when you're
I think he. Yeah. I think.
But I understand what Sally's saying too. You know, he could be just trying to bridge that gap of cultural.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really act like a color. You know what I'm saying? So.
yeah, I can't say I agree with that. Just because I was there with him personally, I totally understand. Like, if someone wants to get to know me, like if a guy wants to get to know a guy, it's like talk about sports, talk about cars, talk about beer, even bring up girls, talk about hunting. Like, you talk about manly things. You don't immediately go asking about African American subculture. That's why I'm like, no.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
I'm curious, man. Don't hate a player.
I'm not complaining. He was a cool dude, but I'm just saying it was like, it was hilarious.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, like, that's for sure. Like, that's not the question you want to ask on the fly, because that's the question I got, like, right when I was at the house. So what are we doing as what are you guys doing as African American culture? Like, what is you guys doing to advance African American culture? What things are you guys doing now that you guys have a black president? This is when Obama was president.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He just got into office like last month. I don't know, man. Guess as good as mine.
It's like, if I do know, why am I going to tell you for you to ruin it?
But you don't leave
Dude,
it.
let me text him real quick. Let me ask him.
Hey, yo, Barry, what we doing?
Yeah, what we down.
Like, you don't. I get what you mean, though. You don't leave with those questions. You kind of start off with like, hey, like, yo,
Right.
what do you like to do for fun? What's your hobbies? You know, shit like that. Is it basketball? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I would ask.
So stereotypes, right? So stereotypes when you date outside your race. I think we kind of mentioned that earlier when you're like, you know, you're dating someone whose parents are like first generation Eastern Asian, like that kind of like that family hierarchy is like incredibly real. I think that also comes from like if you're dating like a girl from like or a guy from like Muslim cultures, like that family hierarchy is like that's law. Like, there's no breaking that. And in my experience, that's absolutely true. Absolutely
It's very true.
No breaking that.
Now, to add to the question, there has the stereotypes work in you guys' favor?
No,
Has
not
not.
mine. Not my personal.
Has not worked in you guys' favor. Like, I mean, I don't know if I can't.
Oh, you know what? It has in mine.
Right on.
It has in mine because, well, I dated a Cuban girl, and you know, a lot of Cubans dance salsa, so I was like, oh shit, I'm a pretty good salsa dancer. So yeah, it worked in my favor for that. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
and in fact,
I can't speak for everybody. I mean, some stereotypes is kind of like I argue back and I kind of like say like, yo, that's not true, right? Because like some girls like I've seen they specifically go for black guys, right? Specifically for a reason like for like pleasure, and they like go for big dick energy. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, I want to date. And I even ask these girls this, like, what do you date black guys? Oh, because you know they have big dicks. I'm like, that's not always true for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you gotta. Maybe the ones you've been talking to have big dicks, but like not all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but they're so inducted into the culture, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, well all the black guys I dated, they always had big dicks, and they always had this, and they always do this. Why aren't you not doing it? Why aren't you not wearing this kind of shit? You know what I mean? So that kind of gets me sometimes. That stereotype is kind of like, all right. Let me educate you. Not all like that, you know.
Well, I think it's like because white Americans and black Americans have very little culture anymore.
Yeah.
They kind of let that go. So they're easier to date because their parents, you know, they only care about if you are doing something with your life, if you're a good person to their daughter or their son, and so forth. But I think the stronger their culture, the harder it is to kind of like breach that gap and hit that first generation because they don't give a shit. They're going straight, just like their ancestors did. They don't want to change anything. You know, because I've known Muslim girls, I've dated Muslim girls who their cousins are dating other cousins just because they're still going with that old tradition. You know, and it's like, it's 2000, it's 2020, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you're still doing that, and there's people are still doing arranged marriages.
Yeah.
And, you know,
yeah,
there's African cultures that won't date Black Americans. They're just like, no, fuck that shit. You know, we still want to hold on to our traditions.
Yeah.
Like, I've talked to Ethiopian girls, couldn't get too far because, you know, their families are very strict as well. Even the ones that I experienced anyway. But it's, you know, I think it's just like, if they're not that open universally anymore, like, you know, you still have the Middle East. They're very strong culturally. They're not really open still. They're just little by little starting to progress as far as rights and women's rights, stuff like that. So it's just hard to breach that. It's really hard, especially with the grandparents, because they don't give a shit. And they all, you know, they believe so hard about whatever prejudice they have on Black guys or white men or whatever.
Sure.
But white girls that I've dated, if their parents had a problem with me, they did not give a fuck. They were like, I don't care. I love him. I don't care what you say. My life.
yeah,
I dated an Indian girl where her parents were like, it's, you know, you got to let him go. And we were dating for like 8 months, and she said we have to break up because of that. And, you know, it's just, my ex, she was Israeli. Her mom kind of had an issue until she came to visit us, and she saw how I was, saw my work ethic, and it just like, it changed overnight. So I broke all of her cultural judgments she had on whatever she thought I was, you know. So it's like, it's very strange, but people are who they are, you know.
So I mean, I guess in a way, you do some people typically, like, say for Black people, like America, like lack of culture, whatever the case may be. I know we typically, most Black men or Black women, are usually attached to another culture. Like, let's say, like my brother, for
For the
instance.
white people.
Yeah. So my brother, for instance, his wife is Filipino, but he's inducted to more of the Filipino culture. And he's, you know what I mean? I was like, man, you ain't never go to church. You don't go to church, man. What you mean? What you doing? He's, you know what I mean? But it's to please the family, because it's a culture thing. So I mean, I can ask you guys. I'm not sure. I can ask the women on here. If you date a guy, now does he have to be involved with your culture? He has to understand your culture, or does he have to be that way? Or are you gonna break the tides and be like, no, fuck it, do whatever you want. I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a question I always want to ask, because I know it's
You know, I feel like as long as he's respectful, you know, of my culture, then it's fine. You know, I
Are you
don't
gonna let
want
him
him
wear shoes in the house?
to do whatever he wants or whatever.
Wear
as
shoes
long
in the house?
Is he gonna wear shoes in the house?
Oh no.
No,
no shoes in
do
the
nothing.
no shoes in the house.
I have a different experience. I think in Ghanaian culture, there's this idea of like tribalism. So, like, Ghanaians are very proud of where they come from, to the point where, like, if you date outside the tribe, like if you date a Nigerian, like, people look down on you. there's like this ongoing war between like Ghanaians and Nigerians.
Oh, for real?
And then on top of it, like Africans kind of view Black Americans, I know it's bad, but they view Black Americans as like less than. And so
Ain't no secret.
Diluted.
We all know that. We all
so
know.
like I mean like my last serious boyfriend, he was white, and I like in white culture, like it's not that big of a deal, but bringing someone white into Ghanaian culture, like he wasn't just dating me, he was dating like the clan, he was dating the family, like he had to get to know everybody. And I remember it being like really stressful for him. And like on the Ghanaian side, people didn't understand how he could be like white and a man and raised in this country and have all this access and not be a millionaire. Like there's certain stereotypes of like what white men are supposed to be like, and he just didn't fit any of them. And it worked against him. Like it worked against him. So like although I really loved him, because we were trying to become more serious, a lot of the family was like kind of divided in accepting him because he wasn't like the stereotype, if that makes sense. So it's like a different experience. I think Ghanaian culture or West African culture, there's like this intense desire to like preserve the culture, and that's why they're so like harsh on who you let in.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Now, do you, I mean, for the women too, do you guys seek the approval from your family first before exploring anything, any option like that? Just based on that stereotype, like they don't already fall into that mold.
I think, like, I'm not gonna lie, my family's opinion matters to me. When I was younger, like it didn't matter and I would just choose whoever. But I've learned that like when you just do whatever you want, like you're gonna have familial influence. So you want to make sure that there's like at least a fit. So they don't have to be like from my culture, but they have to kind of fit. Like they have to be respectful. They have to be like they have to be willing to learn the customs. You know, like there's just certain things that like I would say that like my family comes with me. So yeah, I'll choose someone, but they also have to like be approved by my family.
And what if they're not?
Oh well, see ya. No, if they're not, like I don't know, like I would like to hear it say like it wouldn't matter, but it would be really stressful.
That was one of my it always came down to that. Would you choose your own personal happiness over your family's happiness?
That's American stuff. I don't know. Yeah.
Like, traditional case, there's been 3 girls that I've dated who've been rearranged marriages, and they're just not happy. They're not, and they did that just to make their families happy, and they saw that it did, that first 3 to 6 months after they got married to that person, but once all that died down, everything went back to normal. So their parents' happiness was just a fleeting moment, and now they're stuck with this person who they did not want to be with. And it's like, do you like, because at one point we have to be real, the people who actually care so much about who you're dating are going to pass away, and you're going to be left with whoever they deemed it was okay. And that's not who you truly wanted to be. And you're not born to be controlled by someone else. You're born with free will, right? We're born to do whatever we want, however we want to live, and to, and so on. So it's like, I don't care what my family thinks, as long as they can see that the person's not harming me in any way and the person's good for me. That's the only opinions that matter to me from my family. Other than that, her ethnicity, her religion, her whatever, her habits have nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. That's who I chose as a person. This is my life. That's who I chose. And that's how I've always saw it that way. And I never understood why someone would listen to a grandparent when the grandparent doesn't know anything about the person that they're dating. They don't know anything truly about their ethnicity or anything, their culture. And all they're going off of is hearsay and false propaganda and info. So it's like I can't take the word of that over a culture, because a lot of cultures and traditions are, most of the time they're very harsh, and they're very strict, and it's just not. That's not very. It's not like free will to me. It's just.
Are you saying this because you've experienced it in your own relationship and it worked against you, or do you generally think like we shouldn't be listening to tradition?
No, I've experienced it several times.
Okay, so okay, let's think about like the concepts of like masculinity. Like there are traditional ways men are supposed to behave that you adhere to. Because of these rules of masculinity, you yourself, or at least you can tell me if this is true or not, do you think that makes being in relationships easier, knowing what the rules are? Like, this is what traditional men do, this is what women do, there's a structure, and this type of organization makes relationships healthy.
I think there's a time to be masculine, there's a time to be feminine, in both parts. I think in a relationship, a man should be a man. There should be no problem with that. There should be no resistance to that. And a woman should be a woman. There should be no resistance to that. There's no reason for us to try to swap roles or to try to overcome or be better than any of each other. So I think, there are certain roles that a woman can't do, and there are certain roles a man can't do in a relationship, obviously, just like in life. And so it's just like, as long as you adhere to that, then I think you'll be fine. I think it's when people start to try to control each other, or one person tries to get the upper hand over the other, that it starts to cause this little battle in between each other, and you kind of like lose what brought you together in the first place. So it's like there's no reason for that.
Do you see how then like people who are very traditional would say the same thing about allowing people who aren't part of the culture to like marry in the sense that like we have certain rules, we have certain customs, you're going to mess things up with like allowing people who aren't part of our traditional culture in?
From what I experience is that the rules and customs are there to protect the culture and the traditions. And they think that any outsider will probably break that or destroy that. And so what happens is when you do that, it's just like it kind of creates this like border around life. And what it does is it creates more and more female outliers, because let's be honest, the guys in most of these strong cultures can do whatever the fuck they want. They can do anything. They can stick around all they want, but the girls can get, they can die from that stuff. So what happens is they create these outliers, and these outliers, they start to search for men of passion. And that's usually men of other ethnicities like Latin, black men, and so forth. And they start to see and they start to live and experience this life without these rules and these restrictions. And that kind of creates this double paradigm. And so what happens is when they come to, like, it's kind of hard to say, like, they see family, like women see family very important, right? So when you come from a very strong tradition and cultural family, that's Godhead. So then you have this guy who has nothing to do with that. He's not a part of that, but he's shown you and he's given you this experience that you've never experienced before, that you never heard from your own kind, right? So then you have this duality, which way you should go. But then when it comes down to it, she's always going to go to family. That's my experience. They always went back to family. And then what they saw it's not what they wanted. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. The men in their culture can do just as much harm as men outside of their culture, which their culture is trying to keep them from, which is most of the time is weird to me. It's like having a lock inside, it's just, it's strange. So it never really worked for me. That stereotype, any of that never worked for me. And I kept in contact with two of the ladies, and they've already had kids now, and they're miserable still to this day. It's just not, because they experienced freedom outside of those barriers, and now they're right back into it. And now they're kind of like pressured into teaching their daughters to be the same. And they know that there's different out there, there's better out there. And it's just like it's a vicious cycle, man. It's fucked up.
So one of my friends, she commented, and it's just to add on to the comment here. She said she dated an Asian guy for 5 years. His family never, ever gave him permission. I was white, a widow, and had a daughter. It was a rough, but you move on. And it's kind of crazy seeing it on the other side of the spectrum because, like, yeah, you go back to they say they push you on to date your own. I know we asked that question about would you guys prefer to date your own? I'm sure you guys probably wouldn't mind, right? You guys are open to dating your own race, right? But you're not pushed on to do it. I'm not sure if Aunt Shirley is, or Kylie is, but I know it's pushed on. It's suggested, but I seem like we're all kind of like the black sheep. We're like, oh well, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
it's America. You know what I mean? Like we got so many things to do and so much to go on. But I think the whole part of it, the whole must of everything is that respect. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think that's where it kind of really churs from. I know Alpha Monk. Hey, I know his preference, man. He don't. He goes for the little bit more lighter.
Seasonal changes.
More lighter versions. But okay. So the question so we'll move on to a couple other questions here. I know we kind of almost got off topic here, but
Number 5.
Put on here.
Question number 5.
You want to do 5?
Number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5.
Ooh, have you ever experienced being seen as a fetish?
Oh!
Put that on there.
Yeah.
Was that you? Who put that on there?
I think it was me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was you.
Yeah, that sounds like
Yeah, it was me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something Aunt Shirley would do. She would do some shit.
Yeah,
like
I would.
So you started off. Since you put that one there,
Oh.
we'll start off with you.
Yes, absolutely. I have. And it's like this experience of like, ooh, like you're not even, you're African. Like there's this exotification of me. Like I don't know. I especially from white guys, I get this like hyper fetish like attraction to me. And I can tell they're fetishizing like me because they're like hyper focused on my butt, or they're hyper focused on like my skin color. And it's often like the very first thing that they'll hit you with a compliment. Like, I hear this all the time, like on Tinder. I don't usually date girls like as dark as you or black girls like you, but you're pretty cute and I want to swim in that ocean.
Or one down for the swirl, huh?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Like maybe like majority of my connections, which sucks. So I generally like dating men who already date black women or have like who are attracted to black women, because I hate being like the first to kind of break it in. There's like all this like pressure. Yeah, there's all this pressure.
Representing for all the black women out there.
Yeah.
African enough.
Yeah. So definitely have experience being seen as a fetish. I guess I have a question for you guys. Do you think that's a positive thing if someone looks at you in this regard of like, wow, you're this like amazing unicorn and they want to do all these things with you? Or do you find it dehumanizing?
I mean, why not? It's just another trait. Right?
I mean, it definitely opens the door for them, but at the same time, they're just looking at you for the way you look, they're just attracted to you for the way you look.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think if it's the one only thing, like it was just that one thing, then yeah, it's probably a problem.
Yeah, me too.
If you bring it up every time, like, okay, I get it. black guys, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. All right. I'm
the opposite. I don't like, when it comes to white girls, I don't date white girls who only dated black dudes, because most of the time they only date like the hood ones.
Yeah, the hood ones. Always.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't fuck with them at all, man. Like, they're always like
especially the Bay.
Very promiscuous, and they like kind of like ghettoish. They become ghettoish, and it's like, damn.
Yeah.
They're the stereotype of what you think you would find attractive. Of like what they're the people who are trying to like act black and attract black men. They're the stereotype of what they think blackness is, instead of like being themselves.
I usually go for a white girl who's rarely ever dated anything other than white dudes, so I don't mind being that break in, because that's cool with me.
Maybe it's different for genders.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That I don't.
But you want to set a good example, right? So I mean, you're feeling yourself. You set a good example.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know what? I dated this one black chick, Aunt Shirley, and she was the shit. So I think I'm gonna keep dating black chicks. And then there you go. You created
something. You know,
Pressure.
I'm kind of with Alpha Monk on this one, man. I can't date someone who actually like got a quote unquote a degree in like black men. You know what I mean? Like just because you dated certain black men, like the hood ones, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this this is how it is, da da da. You know, and you're just like,
That's
right?
like mostly
Dante
dating.
is super white.
Weird.
And I question it because I'm on dating sites and I question every like race and like I swear to God I do this all the time. When they match me as they're not black, I'm like, okay, what kind of what is she looking for? Am I exotic to her? Am I like a new beginning for them, or am I like just like any other kind of dude that's you know what I mean, any other brother that's out there?
Just to add on to that.
Asian females get it the worst though. They get it the worst. They're like
Yeah.
they're like prizes for white men and shit. Like
Yeah.
they're so proud when they got like an Asian girl next to them and shit. It's like, damn.
That's true.
So,
I feel so cultured.
But that's like some Asian girls that get a white guy too, and their family is like, she just found like Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, don't you ever let him
Very
go.
white guy.
You got you with Ethan Hawke.
Any white guy. You can say Brad Pitt. Okay, so for you, Kylie, I know that you're like the only Asian here, pretty much. So is that true? Like, do you? Because I noticed, like, okay, so it's sad to say, it's just fucked up statistic. The Asian women are like the highest, like that people go for as far as guys dating. Do you get that exotic question all the time? Oh, you're kind of Asian. Okay, you're Asian. All right.
Yeah, I've definitely got that before. I've gotten, oh, you look really pretty for an Asian girl, like type thing. Or, but funny thing is that I want to mention that I've been that girl who dated, I'm Filipino. I've dated other Filipino guys who've never dated within their race. It was always like, oh, you're the first Filipino girl that I've ever dated.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta confess, I am guilty. When I first moved here, I dated a Filipino chick just because of her lips. Because I've never seen an Asian girl with full lips. Because I come from Kansas, and there's mostly Vietnamese, and they have nice full lips, but they're smaller for some. I don't know. But
Yeah,
I remember it was just that distinctive thing. I was like, man, her lips are gorgeous, and they usually have very nice jawline. So it was just like, that's the only reason I dated her. So it was kind of fucked up. But
Was that a fetish show, or did you?
At the time, it was a fetish because I never dated a Filipino girl. It was like right when I first moved here. So it's like, wow.
In the Bay, yeah, that's
Kylie, was it awkward dating someone who has never dated someone within the culture, but you're like the first person? Like, what was that experience like?
No, it didn't really feel awkward. I kind of felt good in a way, or kind of proud in a way, for them to, jump out of their comfort zone and to date within their race. I definitely got, brownie points, like with the family, like bringing the other Filipino girl, they really like that. But at the same time, I'm honestly the most Americanized Filipino person ever. Like, I don't even know how to speak Tagalog. Or I've been to the Philippines, but it was when I was 2, so I don't remember it. I don't even think you could count it. So I wasn't like the best like representative for like my culture, but I was just Filipino, I'm Filipino. So
yeah, cool.
like, yes, I found one. This is it. This is I'm getting it now. I'm getting all the culture, and they see that. Oh, she doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But there's kind of pressure. I get where you're talking about. There is pressure. There is like you have to kind of hold yourself on guard, because if you fuck it up, they're gonna be like, I'm never ever again.
I know, like, why'd you have to pick this one? You didn't speak the language.
You know what I mean? Like fuck that, right? All right, so I guess Marco, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that as far as the fetish, because
so
you're a little lighter skin, so I mean it's kind of
what's the question one more time?
There's the fetish. This is on the fetish part, and then we'll
you
go
ever
to
experienced being a fetish?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I can't tell you. So I typically, this is really funny, right? So on Tinder, it's like I don't always message first, right? Like I'll let you sit there for a couple days, just because it's like sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends, right? If we match, I'm kind of like, I don't really know if I want to right swipe on that. I won't start a conversation. Sometimes they do. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten. Is it true what they say about black people and they have like little white eyes, right? Emojis.
Oh, like
I'm just sitting here, I'm all like, you trying to come over and find out? Like, just.
But yeah,
like that one. That would get all the time. Alpha Monk knows I'm really into foreign girls, like girls who are just not American, right? So it's like, it's not so much that I get like black stereotypes, it's asking like American stereotypes, which is like really, really funny because like we don't really hear American stereotypes all that often, except for everyone drives a truck, likes McDonald's and Coke, right? And so like I've been asked by like Polish girls who have just been like, oh, like do you live in the suburbs? Do you live in the city? Like you watch this show, or have you seen this thing? I remember when I was in Sweden, like I got offered like I go out. I made a lot of guy friends there, and they're like, "Oh, bro, you want some Coca-Cola?" Like they just thought that all Americans drank Coca-Cola. And then I remember talking to my pool guy who travels a lot, and he was telling me like he was in Moscow, like they gave him like a Coca-Cola, and he drank it, and he only half finished it. And they asked him like, "Oh, do you want it? Like, do you want the rest of it?" And he was like, "No." So they went and put it on top of the fridge next to all their like America memorabilia, and that was like no one was allowed to finish that Coke because the American that came over and drank like half of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so it's or like for whatever reason, there's a lot of Brazilian girls in my I guess my Tinder queue, like girls I'll talk to or my DMs and stuff like that I'll talk to for a while. And they're always asking questions around like, do I have money? Like that always happens. Always some kind of like situation like, do you have money? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
right.
Because
Which is also why actually I won't date certain cultures, certain foreign cultures, because I just know like most of the time they're trying to figure out if I have money or not.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, typically in other countries, like racism is there, but it's not as crazy as it is in the U.S. So like when you like, see someone from like Sweden comes in to the U.S., they're just like, oh, they're not used to the culture. They're just like, oh,
Right.
I can see that being they don't have like a judgmental character about who you are as far as American culture, or as far as like they have American culture judgmental, but as far as like color wise, no. They just think like Americans like drink beer and eat burgers, fries, and watch football, that kind of stuff.
I mean, that is what I do. So, yeah, sure.
I mean,
you're not wrong.
Yeah, one person said they trying to 90-day fiance that ass. Stay woke.
Yeah, I was just thinking that they're trying to get that green card.
Stay woke.
I remember my parents, right? I'll be honest, my parents when I was dating my ex, she came to stay. My parents pulled me aside at one point, and they were like, "Hey, like, do you think that maybe she like just wants a green card?" And I started laughing, and they're like, "Why are you laughing?" Like, because I want the green card. Like, what are you talking about? So I was like, free healthcare, free college. Like, why do I want to be here? I'll just go there.
Yeah, they're gonna pay. Fuck, man, I'll marry anyone. Fuck.
I'll take it. I don't care.
I'll take it.
She want my credit.
Right.
All right, so I guess I'll go down the list of these questions. We're skipping some here because some of them we kind of already answered already.
Right.
And there's a fine line. Is it racism to deny a perfectly suitable partner who isn't your racial preference? Is that a good one?
What was it?
Yes.
So, Markel, you said this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it racism to deny a perfectly suitable partner who isn't your racial preference? So let's say you find like this perfect person, and you're like, for me, like let's say example, like, oh man, she got everything like I'm looking for, and she's like white. I'm like, damn. Like,
well, obviously, then she's not perfect then.
Right, but yeah, so much is coming. Yeah, so much is coming. Everything works out. To me, that could be yeah, because you start thinking about, damn, oh. Like sometimes I think about culture differences too, because I'm like, okay, like you know what I mean. Like, am I open to change to that culture, or I'm just gonna kind of do my thing? Because
why do you have to change to that culture though?
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So you have to try to be respectful in a way, and you're gonna come out just like that. You mean? Because if you're looking for someone with no culture, then you go for white, right? So right. So
yes and no.
Yeah.
American white girl, yeah,
but
Europeans.
Oh yeah,
there's outliers of all races. So I mean, you could probably find any of those strong cultural races, and there'll be an outlier that doesn't.
Yeah.
Just like Kylie said, she's Filipino, but she doesn't follow any of the traditions. So
yeah,
it's like
we still take off shoes in our stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like certain cultures still.
I was like, no matter who I date,
that's just being
I'm wearing shoes in my house.
Like, shit in her
a
house.
little bit, yeah. that wasn't adopted. I never knew that.
Hey, I'm Mexican and I take off my shoes when I come in my house. All right.
The same here, yeah. I take off my shoes too.
I got inducted into that. I never grew up like that. I got inducted into that, so I never grew up that way. I always walked in my shoes. Walked in there and kind of just, woozy. But I learned that from Asian culture. I mean, I didn't learn from Spanish, but I learned mostly from Asian culture to take off my shoes. and it was a big thing. So I was like, okay, now I'm doing it now. I'm gonna incorporate. Oh, damn, I didn't think about that. So I kind of was also, that was a standard in a way for certain cultures too. So I mean, like if I go to a white girl's house, they wouldn't care. I walk in there with shoes, like American like girls that I seen that I dated in suburbs. I walk in there with shoes all the time. They didn't care. It wouldn't even matter. Unless they got a new carpet and they did something, they clean the carpet, then you won't, and it's all white and you walk in there with shoes. Yeah, you can't do that. But if it's like straight up hardwood floor, I'm walking in like it's like a Rick James. Like I'm walking in there like
walk around in socks.
That's like a deal breaker for you.
I'm walking in with some Timberland boots. Nah, man,
You're about to stomp the yards, dude.
That's how your socks get dirty.
See, but I learned that though. I learned that, and I had to adapt to that. I mean, I adapted, but I kind of used that as a method too. So, but I mean, kind of, yeah. I mean, you're right though. I mean, if you're going for someone who's, it's not a color thing, but it is like a culture, like American culture. Like we just talked about, like being Black American. We don't have much culture. White Americans don't really have much culture. So other cultures from other places, we adapted that old style, traditional stuff. Someone say something.
What about color though? What if it was about color, right? Like your friend's like, I set you up on a blind date. You're like, well, tell me about it. Okay, she has a PhD in neuroscience, right? She comes from a very wealthy family. She has her own place. I don't know how he knows this, but he goes, she has an 800 credit score, right? No student debt. She's hilarious. She part-time stand-up comedian, gorgeous, 8 out of 10. You meet her and she's Black. You're like, oh no, she's Black.
Yeah, that is well, the answer to the question is within the question. It is about race. You are being racist because you're rejecting this person because of their race.
That's the only thing, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it all
depends on what is that racism?
What you're looking for, though.
It is racism.
Because you're not putting her down. You're not like degrading her. You're just, I'm not going to date you.
You got to understand. Like,
you're judging her based on her race.
But racism is hating a race. It's like actually hating a race. Prejudice is having a different opinion or having a indifference to whatever their race is involved in. So it's like if she's Black and that's not what I'm looking for, then it doesn't mean I don't look down on her for being Black or anything like that. It's just not what I'm looking for. She could still be great. And who knows, like 6 months down the line, I might be looking for a Black woman and I might bump into her. It's just all
negative in a way because you're not even giving her a chance because she's Black.
Well, it's no different than if like we can flip it and her friend setting her up with a friend. She's he's got all this money, this is and that, but he's really ugly and he's heavyweight. He's kind of big.
So the question we want to
look past that. If he's still a good guy, can you look past that? If he's like 3 inches shorter than you, but he has all this money.
I know, but that has nothing to do with race.
Well, no, he has a point there. He has a point that if someone is not your preference, right? Let's say you only date Filipino girls. Like that is your thing, right? You just love Filipino girls. Maybe you fetishize them a little bit, but you're not disrespecting them. You're not devaluing them. And a really, really pretty Black girl comes up to you. You whatever just know that she's successful, has great things going on. You're just like, no, I'm not gonna date you.
But why though?
That's racist.
You kind of have to find out.
Wondering is that, but then it's like, am I supposed to give her a chance if she's not my preference? Am I now going to entertain her because she's a good girl, even though I prefer this?
Preference
is that fair to her?
Is it the color that bothers you?
Preference is racist.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'm just asking. So I don't have a color preference.
It's just a preference.
I just like foreign girls.
Preference is height, but preference is height. Preference is eye color. These things can be changed. But if you're totally like,
you can't change your height.
Yeah, you can't. Change your height. You can't really change your eye color.
You can't change your eye color either.
Yeah,
so where's the line
it's just
between
a
like
preference.
discrimination and
preference? It only becomes racist if the person said.
She said.
It only becomes racist if the person said, "I don't want to date her because she's Black because I don't like Black people." That's the only time it becomes racist.
No, it's racist.
If I don't want to date her because I'm not
based off
Black at the moment, it is what it is. What?
It's racist because you're discriminating on the basis of skin color.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to preference, like if I find a man and he's attractive and he's smart and intelligent and he's just short and I don't want to date him because he's short, that's based off of preference. But if I don't want to date him simply because he's Asian, that's racist because I'm saying everyone part of this racial group cannot be attractive to me despite the fact that they have lots of variants. And that's,
I still see that as a preference.
No, it's racist.
Is it racist if I only date my own?
Being short.
Racist if I only date my own?
It's racist.
If I only date my own. Like I will only date Black girls. I will not date anybody else because I only date Black girls. That's my preference, is Black women. all colors of black women, that I only date black women. Is that racist?
Low key.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Oh, hold on.
That's low key racist.
I don't
So
think it's
if a
racist at all.
Ghanaian person only dates Ghanaian, that's racist.
Yeah, that's tribalism. It's problematic because now you're saying that like, okay, people outside my group are
Not my-
inferior simply because of who they have like no like you can't change someone's ethnic background. And
But
so
that-
But you're
not
seeing
saying
it,
that,
you're seeing
though.
it mostly in a black and white situation. It has to
I think
be
white people
in
become
a
white.
more situational thing because it's a
No!
race. It's a race. So it's like you said, you can't change it, right? And it is a preference. It is a preference. It only becomes racism when you hate that race. That's
No,
what
race
racism
isn't about
is.
feelings, Alpha Monk. It's not about feelings. It's about discrimination based off of skin color.
Mhm.
Well,
based
how are they
off of
discriminating? How are they
Because
discriminating?
Because I'm neglecting your entire humanity and I'm dismissing
Nobody's
all.
neglecting humanity.
But
All I'm
neglecting
saying-
humanity.
No, listen. Let me say this really quick. You can be an amazing person and have great qualities, everything that I'm looking for. But if I say you're not good enough for me just based off of your skin color, that is racism because it's not about my personal feeling. I'm just discriminating on the basis of skin color, which is what racism is. It's the power of discrimination based off of phenotype. It's not about how you personally feel about it.
I still see it as intentional.
What,
It's all on the person because if the
We
person
all
says,
grew up in a racist society, right?
But,
So
okay,
like,
the question I wanted to ask too: what is the reason why someone would go someone that's not their race, that race that they're preferring, or you know what I mean? Let's say like, what's the reason why you wouldn't go for black women? What's the reason why you wouldn't go for white women? Like, is it that skin color itself, or is it the culture behind it, or what?
racial stereotypes, right? Like,
The stereotypes.
well, I'm saying, okay, there are obviously people who date because of racial stereotypes, or they won't date because of racial stereotypes. But it all falls down in the intention of the person. If they're just not looking for that, if they're just like he said, if someone is like you date a certain person, like let's say for you, for instance, you dated a white person, he was the best boyfriend you've ever had,
yeah.
and then it just didn't work out. But he left something with you that you're so much more interested in white dudes. It has nothing to do with you hating any other race. It's your own preference of you liking that ethnicity because of your own experience that you've been through. Now, if there are people out there that are like, well, I just don't want to date an Asian because they do this and they do that and they do this. That obviously is prejudice and that is wrong. But if they just have a preference for this certain type of ethnicity because of some form of experience they went through that they found love with, or they love the culture, or that's what they're looking for because of the culture, or because of something they see in that person, or something they see in the structure, physical beauty of that ethnicity. It all comes down to preference. It all comes down to intentions. That's all I'm saying. And if your intention is racism, then yeah, that I agree with you. But I believe everybody has different intentions. They have different agendas when they're trying to date a different ethnicity. Just like we all dated different ethnicities, and we all didn't just go for that ethnicity because they were white or they weren't white. But if I'm looking for a white girl right now, and I meet a black girl who's really nice and she's got everything other than what I'm looking for, I'm just, it's my heart is gonna tell me no because that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It's not because she's black or because she's Asian. Because that's just not what I'm
the
looking
thing
for.
that separates you from choosing this person is because of her skin color. It's based off of race, and that makes it racist. It's not.
I don't see that. No, I don't see that. Because
if I date a white dude, it's sure he's white, but like it's the character of the man that I'm attracted to, and the quality and the traits of that man is what I can find in on any race. It's not just specific to white people. So if I say like, oh, I'm looking for a woman who has a PhD, who's educated, who has her own money, and you're saying, oh, I can't date black women, and she's a woman who has all of these things, do you see how you're discriminating just based off of skin color?
I guess, but to me, it's like chipping off the list. If you're gonna go all these lists of PhDs and all these things like that,
But
then you might as well.
My whole point is like
Put
there's
those
only
in the bag
one
as well.
race. There's only one race, and it's the human race. And so
Obviously,
that
that's why I
means
kept saying ethnicity, but it is just, to me, it's just another preference. If you want to make it
Okay.
out, single it out as racism, then that's fine. You know, that again, that's up to you. But to me, the ethnicity is important, but if it's not what I'm looking for, it's not what I'm looking for, you know? Like she can have all of these things, but if she's not what I'm looking for as far as these other check boxes, then I'm gonna pass it by.
But why aren't
I have a
you looking
question.
for her? Why aren't you checking for her though? Like, if she's everything that you want, why aren't you checking for her?
What do you mean checking for her?
Like you're saying, like, oh, like I'm looking for a woman who has all these qualities and she's white, and I meet a black woman and she has the same qualities, but I'm not gonna go with her. Isn't that?
We got some people who commented certain things here. So one
Sure.
person said, I fetishized about dating white women. I realized it was wrong because it wasn't genuine. Was that preference or being racially ignorant?
Racially ignorant.
The idea of it was 40% attraction, 60% fantasy. And then someone else said, if you discriminate against someone based off their income, is that wages? Someone said that.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you can just put all that in the same bag if you just want to, you know, nitpick, and it's like, you know.
Yeah.
So one thing I will definitely add is like, especially with racism, right? We're all ethnic here. We've all experienced racism in some form or another, right? It is my firm belief that racism is bad, right? Racism is not a good thing. I also believe racism is devaluing a person, right? Preventing them from succeeding, preventing them from doing whatever it is they choose to do, right? Because of their race, like in the job place, right? Like, oh, this person's incredibly qualified. I'm not going to hire them because they're Asian, and we don't hire Asians here. That is racist because you are holding them back from advancement in their own personal life. But I firmly believe, like, you know, like one thing. So sorry to say this, I don't really date American white women. I just don't, right? Personally, because I find brown and ethnic skin tones more attractive. That is my preference. And then 2, family history, right? I know for a fact my great-grandpappy was a slave, and I don't really want to date anyone who may or may not have had slaves in the continental US, right? But it's like, am I racist now for not dating white women because I find other skin tones more attractive, or American white women because I find ethnic skin tones more attractive, and because I don't want to date somebody who may or may not have had slaves, right? Am I racist?
It comes down to your reasonings.
That sounds racist.
It comes down to your reasons. To me, it comes down to who you are as a person, your reasons for not dating that person. If it is racist, then it's racist.
I
If
mean,
it's
going off
preference,
of that, I mean, your intention may be good. You may have the best intentions, but your action is still the same. Like you're still not dating this person because of their race.
Right, but me not dating them isn't holding them back.
Yeah. So it's
If
not
anything,
racist.
it's benefiting them because they're not going to date somebody who may
I
or may
mean,
not have
I think
some.
you could be, there's like different levels of racism. I mean, you could be racist and, you know, say something like nice about someone, like, oh, you're Asian, so you must be smart, you know, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like that's racism. Or you could be like, oh, you're
Right.
black, you must have a big dick, you know? That's not holding you back, but you're
If I
still
were black, I'd say
Stereotype.
A lot.
Right. I mean, that's why I wrote the question down. I was genuinely curious. I was like, okay, where do we draw the line at preference and prejudice? Like, where is that line drawn? Yes, you should go for somebody for their character, for their values. But if that's what it is, then all women are heightest by mostly wanting to date guys who are taller than them, right?
Oh,
And every ethnicity that dates only within their ethnicity, that person is racist. Even though I don't know who it was earlier, there was a conversation happening about like how it's not wrong for certain cultures wanting to preserve their culture. And it's like, well, then wanting to preserve your culture with your own is racist. Like, I'm just curious where that line is drawn. If you guys had to draw a line somewhere between preference and prejudice, where would that line be?
I mean, I think there's a fine line. I think your question you want to ask is there a fine line of racial, I guess not racial preference, but stereotypes, racial stereotypes, and then racism. Because like, if the things you guys are saying right now is like a racial stereotype based off their race. Like you look at their income, okay, certain people of Asian descent have a lot of money, or you go for that.
Well, no, my question was,
Red Pill
where's the line between preference, racism, prejudice? That was my question.
Well, see, Red Pill can probably test this. Like, light skins in any race are always deemed as players. So is that racist? Like, even black women don't date light-skinned dudes because they think that all light-skinned dudes are players or they'll cheat on them.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, you know, it's all in intentions, man. It's like it.
Well, someone's commented said, I think racism equals hate. If there's no malice or intent, then maybe not racism. Everything else above that is prejudice.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because Kylie had an amazing point with the, oh, you're Asian, you're smart. Like, that was like an amazing point.
That is a
Or
racist
the whole, or,
form of
you
racism.
know, oh, you're really pretty for a black girl. Or you have good hair for a black girl. Or you speak well for a black guy. It's like, you meant that with the best intent, but that was racist.
Well, some people would say like
Like,
they want to have like black hair, or they want to, you know what I mean?
It's
Like
called positive
those little
racism.
things too. Like they want to have kids with the black person because they want to have that kind of hair, or you know, that kind of skin tone. So I mean, in a sense, that is based off of race, that they're only specifically going for. And would you call them racist at that point if they love to have that kind of skin tone, they want to have that hair color, they want to have their kids to have it? So I mean, is that considered the same kind of thing too? Because I mean, someone who specifically goes for one race and not the other, then that could be the same thing, I guess. You can
but let's say like I go to a club, right? Let's say I go to a club, it's a nightclub filled with like beautiful women, right? There's beautiful women, it's a great scene, everyone's warm, I'm in flow, and like I'm gonna start approaching girls, right? But I'm only approaching my type, right? I'm only approaching tall, slender, Slavic, Scandinavian looking women, right? Let's say I'm going for that, right? Am I racist now because I'm not approaching women who may be from certain Eastern Asian cultures, or I'm not approaching women who may be from certain Latin cultures? Like, am I now racist because I didn't approach them?
No.
That's just preference.
Yeah.
That's a
See,
preference,
that's
right?
what
So
I'm
is it
saying.
no different than if a girl's trying to date, or if a girl's interested in me and I'm just like kind of like, oh hey, I'm not really interested, and then because maybe she doesn't fit within my preference zone. Right?
See, it's a preference, it's not
So is it
racism.
preference or is it racism?
Yeah. So Steven commented, he said, piggybacking with Shirley, there's only one race, the human, quote unquote, human race, then skin tone becomes a preference when it comes to dating per se. And
But that's not how it works. Like in the real world, we're all indoctrinated with messages about like what's attractive and what's not, what's inferior and what isn't. Alpha Monk just used like light-skinned dudes being seen as players. This all comes back to like histories of cultures saying one color is better and one isn't, and we replicate that in our dating choices. And when we pretend that these dating choices are just preference and not just reinforcing racism, we fall into like really, I don't know, we miss out on the person who can be really for us because we're all human.
True.
I think that's changing though, because I've seen, like, I remember when I was younger, it used to be all about white women, right? And they've had videos of, they've had little black kids, and they'd have them choose dolls, and they would always go for the white one. They say they were prettier and stuff like that. But it has definitely been shifting to more of the brown skinned women and darker haired women, and even black women used to be on the bottom of the list as far as preference for dating, like in the last decade, and they've actually shot up many levels. Even more and more white men are looking for black women now, because it has kind of shifted as far as what is seen as beautiful, or what's seen as superior in beauty than it used to be. So
I think it's still the same.
curvaceous women are becoming more and more important. It used to be just big breasts and no booty, like in the 90s and shit.
Oh, I remember that.
Now it's more curvaceous women,
Totally 180.
darker skin.
Yeah.
That's, you got a little heated here. I know. I mean, pretty much the questions I have on the bottom is almost kind of what we've talked about too. But I'm gonna probably wrap this up in a bit. But so number 10.
Number 10.
What is it wrong to experiment with a race you've never been with before? Experiment?
Yeah, like let's say, or like Aunt Shirley was like, there have been white men in her DMs who have never been with a woman of color, right? Right, and not like a mixed woman of color, a woman with substantial melanin, right? It's like, are they wrong for like, oh, I would like to sleep with an African woman, right, or a Ghanaian woman, or women with much more melanin than I currently have, right? Are they wrong for that?
I said, if it's just a fetish, then yeah. If it's they just want to have sex with her just because she's Asian or black, I think that's kind of wrong. That's kind of fucked up, because then you're just using them for that preference. And then, just like we were talking about the last podcast I was on, I was just like, if you just go for that one person, just for that one thing, like they just got money, Or they're just because she's beautiful. Don't care about if she's smart or not, just because she's just beautiful. Or just because he has a really nice car and he has a really nice house and a good job. That's the only reason I want to be with him. I think that's when it becomes an actual problem, is when it's like that. But I mean, if you've never dated a Filipino girl before and you actually did see someone you were interested in, she was Filipino, then I would say, yeah, go for it, because you never know what you might learn. And she might just be the right choice for you. But if you're just going for it because she's Filipino and she's got Asiatic eyes and that's all you've always wanted to date that or have sex with that, then I think that's kind of wrong.
And what if you state your intentions, but not necessarily your reason behind your intentions? He's like, hey, I'm only looking for sex. I'm only looking for a one-night stand or a hookup or an FWB. And then the girl's like, oh, okay, I'm also only looking for an FWB. Here's what we talk about. Make sure there's mutual respect. But he never says, you because you're Asian and hot. Like, is he wrong?
They both agree with it, then shit, go make cookies, man. Do it.
So I was just curious.
So Kim commented, I did date Asian men and had to have an honest conversation with myself of how social constructs and racism had impacted me against my own racial/ethnic group. And someone said, is it bad that I never dated anyone in my own race?
I haven't either. So.
And then someone else commented here and said, what about music? All music is just music, but everyone got their own musical preference. You may not prefer my music, and that's okay. If you don't like it, I can't proclaim, well, you're a jazz hater. I never heard jazz hater before.
It would just be problematic if there was like a history of killing people who like jazz music, and then you're like, oh yeah, I won't date people.
Can't really compare music and people.
Yeah,
Like,
That's kind of watered the conversation down.
I can't picture nobody just going out the hinges, man.
Right, because like with the whole, Anne Shirley made some incredibly like valuable points, things that I'm definitely gonna think about when this podcast ends. Like, oh, okay, but that's also like now for myself, I kind of have to draw that line. Like, where does preference and prejudice? Like, where is that line drawn? Right, I definitely think you should go for somebody based on values, shared character, mutual attraction. But then is it racist to have a certain attraction of a certain phenotype versus another phenotype, even if you aren't devaluing the person or degrading the person, or think that culture's less than your culture, right? Because it's like, what if somebody's like, man, I'm really, really into tiny pierced titties. Like, that is like my thing. Like, I only like small boobs that are pierced. And so I'm only going to try and date women and sleep with women who have small boobs that are pierced. It's like, well, is he a bad guy for not dating women who are busty?
No, you're not a bad guy, but it's like, do the busty women also have equal opportunity to
in their life? Yes. To get in that person's bed? No.
Sorry?
I said, do they have equal opportunity to live their life unhindered? Yes. Do they have equal opportunity to be in a man's bed? No.
Okay.
I've seen, I mean, this is just getting a little off topic, but I'm not too sure if it's the same for most people. I've seen where some people don't go for their own race, especially I know in some Polynesian culture that they don't go for someone who's in the same race as them sometimes, because typically that could be someone in their family. I'm not sure.
Right.
Because you don't want to dip in that and find out that I know it's the same probably to any kind of culture if you're surrounded by that. But like, is that true for some of you guys? Like you, okay, all right. I don't. Okay, so she's not the only one, because I noticed most people don't do that for that reason, because there's a relation to that point.
Yeah, the Ganyan community is like hella small in the Bay Area, so I don't even like mess around with it because we're all like related somehow. Like
I'm too mixed up. I don't have that problem. I won't run into anybody with the same mix that I have.
Never know, man. You never know. It's like, oh, me too.
Yeah.
I will say there was a time where I had a huge crush on a girl, right? And like we were really young. We never did anything, whatever. But I had a little crush, and we talked, and I think we played Nintendo DS one time. And then I found out like a few months later she's actually married into my family. That was awkward. That was very awkward. I was like, no. We never kissed or held hands, but we definitely had like a little like schoolyard crush, right? I think this was like maybe just entering middle school, so that was like really weird for me. So that is a subconscious fear I have now with any woman on the West Coast, is like, yo, we married in somehow, But also, I don't like dating women, not necessarily within my culture, but like even within like the West Coast culture. Like, I really like women from other cultures that are just drastically different, right? I believe I come from a very independent family, right? We don't have a real deep ethnic culture. I have my own personal beliefs, value systems that I built up over the years. So in a way, they're a bit unshakable to where I'm confident dating somebody who has different value systems as long as the main pillars are met, right? So I like dating women who come from different backgrounds, different cultures than me, because there's that mutual learning going back and forth.
All right. So
Yeah. Oh, never mind.
So yeah, well, okay, we'll kind of wrap it up with, I guess, one more question here. I think we said, what if a white girl that grew up in adopted Black culture and only dates Black men? Is that racist or circumstance?
Circumstance.
I think it depends on how she behaves.
That
Like,
too.
as long as she's like not trying to put on like her idea of what Blackness is, because when she goes out into the world, she's not going to be seen as a Black person. She's going to be seen as a white person. So if she goes out into the world as a white person and is like trying to act Black, I think that's problematic. You can still be white and welcomed into Black culture. Like, you don't have to change who you are.
So even
They
if she was
always
raised by
pick
Black people from like day
They always
one.
pick the ghetto culture too. They always pick the ghetto
Yeah,
culture. I never
People
understand
get
it.
that kind of mixed up too, because to me, like when someone says they're acting Black, it's like, okay, what is
Yeah.
that? Especially
If
Yeah,
they're only exhibiting negative behaviors, that's pretty
what is
always, man.
like,
It's so annoying.
what
It's so annoying.
does that mean? Because because I get talked like, oh, you talk white. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Dante, you're the whitest Black guy I know.
We don't.
and I heard that too, and I'm like, okay, so what the fuck does that mean?
So, on
So
top of educated.
yeah. It's like, well, so I got to be this way and that's what I kind of dealt with dating people who already dated Black dudes before. They got that kind of standardization of what Black is, and they think they know more about being Black than a
Man,
Black
you're not
person.
like Tyrone. It's like,
Yeah, it's like you don't do this, you don't.
Tyrone.
It's
Yeah,
like,
you never say the N-word.
and it totally just it's wrong, and it's just like it pisses me off and it turns me off. Actually, I was like, okay,
It turns you off or it turns you on?
it turns me off, man. Like, I was
Oh,
like,
okay. I was like, okay.
you think you already kind of know a standardization to keep fucking with them dudes. You know what I mean? Like, period. So I like anime. You don't gotta be Asian. So if Dante likes anime, he don't gotta be Asian. All good. Fuck. True. But no, okay. So in the whole midst of everything, hopefully this is of content for you guys. I think we've all kind of shed some light on some very controversial topics and very I think people are a little bit, little heated here. But in the whole sense of everything, I'm going to end it here. So if you guys want to add something on to the end, if anyone else does too, then you guys said a buzzword. Congrats. No one said it. I'm surprised. Unless you guys did, I'll look at it.
I'm pretty sure someone said that at one point.
No, I don't think.
I don't think anyone said it. I was paying
anyone said it. I was listening.
I don't think I said it.
No. Okay, I'll end with the closing statements. I think we definitely covered a topic here that everyone listening and each one of us really needs to kind of think about, right? Like preference versus prejudice, right? Especially when it comes to like dating or like dating partner, right? If you're someone who grew up with certain fetishes, right? Like we all know a very common one is men wanting to date Asian women because of perceived passiveness and perceived like, oh, they'll kind of like be kind of like this maid figure where they'll just kind of just take care of you, right? I think that's a lot of the poor negative stereotype associated with that fetish. Definitely need to look at your own mental scripts and beliefs on certain colors, ethnicities, cultures, and be like, okay, well, is this completely accurate, right? Is this a preference or is this a prejudice?
I would say it's kind of like a neural programming that you got to kind of like reprogram if you see it as a prejudice. I will stand by. I think it depends on the person, and it is a preference, but it is a very thin line, and it can become prejudice if you lean too much into the obsession of that just that ethnicity. I can see that happening. But I will say that a fetish is, I mean, we got to be real. Fetish, everybody has it, and everybody has one for the opposite or the same sex, whatever they're going for. And it's just, I've known females who only go for guys who are over 6 foot, or guys who make a certain amount of money. And I've seen guys who only go for girls with big asses, or they only go for girls who have big boobs, or they only go for girls who are Black. and it's just their own personal fetish or preference they have into that. But yeah, I would think you have to have a lot of inner dialogue and be honest with yourself as to why you like a certain ethnicity, and if it is a prejudice, then own up to it. If you can't change it, and if you can change it, then it'll make you a better person.
Man, I swear. Sorry, someone just said comment about I only date guys that put lotion on their ankles.
Who said that?
Yeah,
Only two people know what that means.
Hey, who said that?
No, Kim. Just comment off on there.
That's hilarious. Oh my god.
Like, damn, come on, man, stop it. Oh man. Well, I mean,
before we go, what I want to say, going off of what Markel and Mondre were saying, I mean, that's like speaking for yourself, but also think about how you're affecting the other person too. Because if I was the perfect person for you, but the only reason why you're not dating me was because of my ethnicity, then that's like hurtful to me.
But you would know that because I wouldn't go for you.
I know, but if I like were to find out, or like that would be hurtful.
Don't want to tell them.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing as if you didn't go for me because I had a beard and I found out, it would be hurtful. So it's like it's no
I know,
different.
but that's not talking about your race.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
What if you didn't go for Swoosh, or you didn't go for
What about me?
Andre because they're under 6 foot?
Yeah, like me.
It's still a preference.
Again, still that's not talking about your race.
But it's just a preference.
It's still like it's still like a preference. Like I'm short. I'm pretty sure a lot of girls don't like short guys. So.
Well, just the other day that I think we were talking about what races we wouldn't date.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we were kind of all guilty of being racist if that's the way you look at it. But I still saw that day as a preference. It's just something that I'm not into at the moment. Doesn't mean I'll never will be into it. I've been known to just go with the flow of how I'm feeling. I never like really go for like a certain thing. I never fixate on that. And again, there are people out there that's like that. But me personally, I've never done that myself. I've just never not because they were just because of that race. It's just I just wasn't into it at that time. Mm-hmm. But I still see it just as a preference. I don't see it as a prejudice. But
she sees it differently. I know she's she definitely doesn't see it as the same. But I mean, yeah, there is a timeline between a preference and racism, especially when you talk about color. I know it's not. Some people it's the same as like saying someone's talking about their height or a beard or some kind of hair preference. But I guess for certain people, race and color is a whole big one, big genre of uncomfortability and sensitivity. So yeah, I mean, just like that.
And Shirley was right earlier. It's been a stigma in our nation's culture for hundreds of years. So it's going to look and be seen as a prejudice or a problem every time it's brought up. But like Morgan Freeman said, the only way we can move past it and progress is just stop talking about it, stop worrying about it. It's just start going forward.
Yeah. I don't know if Shirley's Jane. Did she leave up out of here?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. I think
there is. I do think certain people of certain melanin types, right, have either more or less access to the entire dating pool, right? Like I am speaking from the perspective of a mixed Black person who grew up in California, right? Mm-hmm. So like my access to the dating pool, regardless of how I look or whatever status I have, regardless of my physical attraction, right, regardless of whatever assets and materials I have, it's just going to be larger than someone who comes from, let's say they're from Southern India, right? Or someone who's from other countries where maybe there is a stigma about a certain skin type or certain culture being less attractive, right? Like that is something we kind of have to admit here. We can't just like brush over that some people, certain cultures have greater access to the dating pool than others. Like Asian men have a hard time dating because there's a stigma against Asian men.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah.
That's based on race.
Kim said you can't change what society identifies you as, though. You really can't change what they identify you as. So I mean,
you can change the individual's mind, but not society. Yeah. I believe it.
Right. But I'm just saying, as we're saying, like, oh, is it prejudice or preference? Well, it's like there's an entire societal prejudice against you. It's gonna be really, really hard because people won't prefer you.
She said, "Yo, he dates guys with iPhone." All right. Well, I'm almost. I got like a minute 30 seconds on my live stream, so I'm not sure if you probably gonna end
That's it. I've said my piece.
it.
I'm good.
Yeah. So you guys good? All right. So thank you guys for tuning in. Also, like I'm letting you guys know, it's all on our website. I'm gonna post this on here, this whole episode, and possibly gonna do something again. We're gonna have some more people next week. I create a Patreon. So it's $5 a month to get a 30-minute to 45-minute Q&A before the episode. So I'll put everything on my website there. But thanks you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for coming in. And yeah, man, it's been good. These comments are funny. But all right, guys, that's it for today. But yeah, I don't know, I don't know what else to say. But thank you guys. We'll tune into next time, guys. And
Peace.
all right, guys. All right. Later. Oh, I didn't see you there. Hey, this is going on. This is Dante from the Why Day Podcast, the host, and hope you guys like our content on the last episode. And just letting you guys know that we are going to be posting everything on our website, www.whydatepodcast.com. And for all the information, you can go on here. I know if you guys already looked on the video, it's on YouTube. YouTube episodes are on here. Everything on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, all that is on there. Now, another thing we also are giving out for a lot of listeners who's been listening for a while, we actually have a Patreon. So a Patreon account, if you donate, it's a $5 tier of $5 a month. What we're going to be giving you is some exclusive content, which is going to have 30 to 45 minute Q&A before the episode. So if we typically have a guest speakers on there. We have some love coaches on there, like we had in our last episode. We have a love coach, relationship gurus, motivational speakers. So you got the Q&A time within 30 to 45 minutes to talk to them before we do our episode. Or if you want to talk to any of us, some of the speakers on there, the co-hosts and things like that, we also open that up for anyone out there. Also, we're going to be having an exclusive giving out the prior episode. So we're going to have the episode and you're going to have the first leak of the episode before we even put it on to everybody else to see. So that's all we have. It's just $5. It's a very small number. I know most people are, got other investments, whereas Netflix, I'm not competing with Netflix or Disney Plus, but it's something that we're giving out for you guys here. If you want to tune in there, that's also on the website. I'll put the link right down here. So it's www.whydatepodcast.com. And now I'm going to get back to my work. So if you guys want to kindly just, scatter